Hello, Future Bestsellers. Happy NaNoWRIMO. I hope you guys are all doing well today. So we are expecting Michelle Schusterman to pop in any second. You guys know she's traveling in doing the van life thing. So hopefully she'll hop in soon. And poor Robert is sick today. And so we're not going to have him with us today. So it's just going to be us and hopefully Michelle. In any case, how are you guys doing this morning and what are you working on? As everybody starts filtering in today, if you are not familiar, I'm Lisa Daly. I'm a traditionally published best-selling author of I don't know 11 books, something like that, and on the show, we talk about how to write a book you're super proud of and get it published. And today we are doing NaNoWRIMO writing sprints. And I am super excited about that because I have been making excellent progress on my Nano book. How are you guys doing today? Let us know in the chat. BC is here. Hello, BC. Can't wait to get some writing done. Me too. Me too. Devin's here. Hello. Good morning. Can't wait to get some writing done. Hope y'all are having a wonderful day. Feeling great. Ready to get the words flowing. Very, very nice. Lissandra's here. Hello. Super glad to see you today. All right, BC is going to be working on revisions for Paranormal Mystery Series. So far behind. I totally feel that. Absolutely. I'm going to be working on my self-help book this morning, which I'm making really good progress on. I just realized last night, like, oh my gosh, I'm really close to the end. So my goal is to get that done by the end of the month. So before I was feeling like, am I going to make it? And now I'm like, I'm positive I'm definitely going to make it. So all right. Daisy's here. Hello, Daisy. Querying journey is going badly. Oh no, my one full request was rejected. Going to get my aggression out by trying a middle grade horror. Good for you. Good for you. Just know that when you are submitting your manuscript to agents, that sometimes it's about the writing, and that's what authors are often like. That's what we usually think it is. Like if agents react in a way that is not the way we want, will Michelle is here. Yay.
Hello. Sorry I'm late.
Yay, so glad to see you. I was saying that sometimes we think that it's the writing, but sometimes it's just where the agent is in their list. Maybe they just sold a book like that, or maybe they're not seeing a market for it right now. So it might be you, but it might, or it might be not you, but it might be the book, but it might also just be, some outside factors. So anyway, Michelle is here. Super glad to see you today. So Robert is homesick today, which is rough. I know so many people. One of my book coaching clients, Anne Marie, was sick. She came in this morning. She was like all last week sick, which really sucks.
Oh.
I know. So Michelle, tell us a little about you and your awesome, your awesome channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Schusterman. I'm a middle grade and young adult author, and my channel is Traditional Publishing Chat, Writing Blogs, and Writing Workshops.
Thank you so much for being here
Thank
as
you.
always. I
Thank you.
almost like I used to do. I mean, I never really did a ton of writing sprints by myself because I always had like you or Robert with me. But now it's like to the point like where if I don't have one of you, I'm like, what is happening? What should I talk about? So that's kind
Yeah.
of, which is hilarious because you guys know me. I never have anything. I never have problems figuring out stuff to talk about. So all right. So let's go through and say hi to some of our friends in the chat. What are you working on today, Michelle?
Ghostwriting rom-com.
Yeah. Oh, same one from last week.
Yeah.
Yay. Super awesome. Sisters,
Yeah.
authors, friends in Canada. Good morning. Super glad to hear that you're here today. Lysandra, today is my first day of drafting on a new project. Ooh, love that. I love that new project energy. That's just like so exciting. Oh, I'm so sorry you're not feeling well. I feel like there's so much of that going around right now.
Definitely.
Lainey's here. Hello, Lainey. Super glad you are here today. Everybody is super high to see. Super high. I don't know if everybody is super high, but the way I'm talking, you guys might think I am. Um, everybody's super happy to see Michelle today, as always, as I am. Avi, the author, is here. So glad to see you
Yeah.
today. Heather's here. Gosh, we've got so many great folks here with us today. Da, da, da. Daisy says Lisa's right. Could be the market or your genre for your genre is currently oversaturated. That happens a lot because, like authors, as much as I love us, we're a little bit like locusts sometimes, where we're like, "Oh, this is selling." Oh, the whole crowd's like that. So that happens sometimes. That happens sometimes for sure. And sometimes it's just a list, or sometimes it's like next week is Thanksgiving and I don't have any time to deal with this stuff, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, good question. Daisy says, Michelle, how gory, scary, spooky can a middle grade horror be?
Oh
Dun, dun,
man, that's such a
dun.
good question, and one that would take so long to answer. It I really, really think that it's not like a level of gore or scare or spooky. It's how you write it. I have read some things in middle grade that in the hands of another writer, the exact same that level of gore or scariness would be very adult and not appropriate for kids, but because of the way it's handled, it works.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like a great example, Neil Gaiman is always a really good example. Like
Yeah,
Coraline is very scary. It is not gory at all.
right.
But oh my god, what's his other the Graveyard Book?
Nightmare
Literally
Before.
no, the
Oh,
Graveyard
no,
Book.
that's Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Um it starts out with a hand holding a butcher knife, and that, like, that's the first line is something about a hand in the darkness holding a knife, and literally the scene is a man with a knife butchering an entire family and attempting to kill a baby who manages to escape by crawling out of its crib. Like that had Neil Gaiman, because he can write for adults, had he wanted to write that for an adult audience, it would have been very different
Right.
and very inappropriate for kids, but the same thing would have happened. But the style and the way he handled it makes it a middle grade novel, if that makes sense.
It's hard. That's really challenging. I
You
hadn't
gotta
thought,
read a lot, I think, to
right?
start to see what the differences are, yeah.
So it's funny because, as you all know, my significant other is the horror geek, and I know, like, he watched, like, Jaws was sort of his entree into horror when he was a kid,
Classic.
and he
Yeah.
was way too young to watch that. Although he loved it, there was something about that deeply connected for him
Mm,
with gore and horror in particular. And I sort of wonder, like, there are going to be some kids that are going to have nightmares about that stuff, and
mhm.
some kids that are just going to be like, this is for me, and it's
Yes.
gonna, right. So yeah,
For sure.
it's challenging though. That's a really great question, Daisy. A really great
It is.
question.
I
If the
agree.
horror geek wanders around, if he's wandering around outside my office, I'll snag him in like a Venus flytrap, and we'll ask him the question. Heather doing some stuff with us before she goes to meet friends for lunch. I think I was writing in a pretty dead genre, middle grade sci-fi. What do you think about that, Michelle?
Well, I wouldn't call it dead. I mean, everything just the market has its trends, and it's true that, like, sci-fi has always been, especially if you're talking, like, hard sci-fi, it's never had the moment that, like, fantasy seems to eternally have,
Right,
which is there's always a demand for fantasy.
right.
There are some authors out there who are actively looking for it, and again, there's such a spectrum to sci-fi that I think it really depends on, like, what you're talking about. If you're talking about super hard, futuristic, high-tech, set in space sci-fi, that might
Mm-hmm.
be a little tougher for sure. But sometimes it's just in how you pitch it, maybe there's a different angle to your pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We did this recently and with the book packager I work for, there's a there's a project we're doing that has an element to it that could definitely be described as sci-fi, but we felt that would put editors off, and there's
Mm-hmm.
another it's kinda similar to if you think about, the novel Warcross by Marie Lu.
Mm-hmm.
It's, like, slightly future, slightly more high tech, lots of video ga but you can see how you could pitch that to not quite be so hard sci-fi. There's,
Right.
like, another angle into it. I don't know. I'm doing a bad job of
No, I mean,
explaining it.
you can pitch the, right, exactly what you were saying. You can pitch a lot of different angles with the same story,
Mm,
and sometimes that's what you need to do to get somebody to open the book and really get into it. And I remember, like, I vividly remember a time before all those Twilight books went crazy, that like literally in the editorial guidelines of almost all of the major publishers, they would say no werewolves, no vampires, no this. And now, right, and even now, like since Twilight, I don't think that the desire for that has ever waned, that those books have sold really, really well. And rom-coms had the same sort of thing where, I don't know, 2009, the head book buyer at Barnes and Noble declared that chick lit was dead. 2008 or 2009. It was right about the time my first rom-com came out.
That's good. That's good.
She declared it was dead. And essentially it was like, you know, the head buyer, Barnes and Noble, says this genre is dead. You know, they're not buying it. And it did just sort of dry up. And a lot of those sort of chick lit authors and rom-com authors shuffled over to YA, which was selling really well and was a really natural sort of fit. And I had a lot going on, but what I really wish I had done was just keep writing my little rom-coms and bank them, because right, and because what happened was that trend came back around, and then now rom-coms are everywhere again, and there's so much desire for that type of material, which makes sense because we've all lived through some pretty hard crap, and we'd like to just laugh for a while and see some people fall in love and, you know, and laugh. But if you feel like this is a genre that you, or a subgenre that you really are in love with, then write it. Because one, there's still, I never gave up my desire to read rom-coms, even though there are far less of them around. Just like people who love to read about shifters and vampires and werewolves will continue to want to read that, even if it's not the most popular thing in the universe at the time, although it is right now. And so I think if you just write the books that you want to write, there you can find an audience for them. But if you want to sell them to a major publisher, then sometimes you have to tweak the way that you pitch them.
Yes.
Avi says, so sorry about Robert, still getting it. Oh my goodness, everybody, I can't tell you how many people I know who've been sick. Avi, I'm so glad you are here, and hopefully you're feeling better. Good gracious. Yes, absolutely. It's truth. Absolutely truth. Regina's here. Hello. Glad to see you. Yeah. Yes, right. This is the crazy thing. I was like, I did, and then I was like, should I just call it? I know. I have had this myself. Like,
no, I think she's talking about her name.
Oh, is it? Sorry, I thought you were talking about mine, which is also too freaking long. Best-selling author, writing coach Lisa Daly. Too long. I don't know what I was thinking. All right, but I feel your pain, sister. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. All right, here we go. We, meaning my sister and I, not talking about myself in the third person.
You know, you can own the royal we. It's okay.
It is. It is. Right. Yep. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And it just, it can be too, BC, as I think, as you were saying, that like sometimes they just don't have space in it, space for it in their list, or maybe they overbought in that particular area. It really kind of depends, or they're just not, they are trying to round out their list, especially at this time of year. And, you know, that's the other thing. There's less money right now, because, you know, they get their new budgets at the beginning of the year a lot of times. So yeah, so that's the other thing. They might be out of money. This is maybe not the best time to pitch. All right, here we go. Have you heard about I can't read today. Nano forums being frozen because of alleged misconduct. A forum moderator was directing young writer. What? I had not heard about that, but we will do our 5-minute warm up, and I will try and look it up.
That's upsetting.
My gosh. I know, right? There's some good questions here. We are going to come back. Loretta is here. Hello, Loretta. We are super glad to see you. I'm in Florida too. Welcome. Where are you from? What part of Florida? All right, here we go. Jessica says, thriller author here. I rarely make the live, but I love your chats. Oh, that's so awesome. We're so glad. And Ms. Swift is here. Hello. We're super glad. BC's like, Jaws. I adore that movie and book.
It is such a good
Love,
movie.
love that. Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and start with our 5-minute warm-up sprint, and then we'll come back and talk a little more. Da, da, da. All right, here we go. So I'm feeling good about Nano. In the chat, let us know what you guys are working on today. And our 5-minute warm-up sprint, we're just going to get our little documents open and stretch out our fingers and get our big vats of caffeine and whatever else we need to be productive today. So, all right, everybody, here we go. We're going to get started. 5-minute warm-up sprint in 3, 2, 1. Let's sprint. All right, we are back. I actually just started. I like opened my document and just started writing, which is kind of funny. I don't know how many words I got, but probably 100. So I
Shit.
was so quick. I know. I was like,
I
I was just going to open it and start a review, but then I was like, so yeah. How did you do on that warm up? Did you get a drink?
I got a drink and answered an email. That was it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I
All
also
right.
got kind of a night, like, I got a query update. I mean, not a query update, a submission update.
Great.
And this it just makes me feel good that editors do things like this sometimes. An editor passed on my book, but enjoyed it and thought that an editor friend of theirs at a completely different house would appreciate it, and actually mentioned it to them. And that editor was already on my sub list, so they found out it was already in her TB read pile. But like, how nice that an editor would pass on something, but literally reach out to an editor at a different house entirely. That
That's
made me feel
great.
good. That was like a nice
That's
moment.
That's really great. Well, and that's a really good example, good illustration of what we were just talking about is sometimes
Mhm.
your awesome book just doesn't fit their list, but they
Exactly.
still right, but they still love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's fantastic. I'm going to just keep my fingers crossed. Plus, if somebody else says, "Oh my gosh, this book could be great for you." You're going to put it to the top of the TBR pile and you're right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, anything you can do when an editor has a stack of submissions to read to, like, get your name or your title a little bit more in their head is like, thank you.
Is a good
That
thing.
editor did me a solid, and I just appreciate it. That's all.
That is very that is really awesome. I love it when that stuff happens. Avi wanted to know, are you still in the RV?
Still in the RV. Woo.
Get
I'm kinda, like,
out.
propped up in the bed. There's the
Oh
kitchen.
my gosh. Look how
There's a
cute
chair.
that is.
It is.
I know you were
Fun.
planning on doing some van life updates, but I have not had a chance to look at them yet. So this is the first time I'm seeing the van. I love
It's
it.
been fun. Yeah,
That is
it's
super
we're just
cool. I
like
have another writer friend who lives on a yacht. She and her husband live on a yacht, and every time we have this little Friday Zoom call, Lainey's on there too. We have this little Friday Zoom call, and she's just hanging out, ocean in the background,
yeah.
sunshine everywhere. I know it's like I'd like to live on a yacht and write my books. It sort of reminds me of that scene from oh god, Romancing the Stone, the second one, like when they've all gotten together and then they've gotten all that money from the stone and they have like they're living on a I think they're living on a yacht. Anyway, so but she can't write. Like her life is too perfect now and she can't write
Mm.
anymore. But all I remember, and then I think it got worse from there. Anyway, Loretta's here. Hello. Oh, we already talked about that. Loretta's from Tampa. Loretta, we're practically
Yeah.
neighbors. Sarasota girl here. Very nice. Greetings from Techno72. We are super glad you are here. Ooh, this is a good question from Loretta. Somebody on Twitter said fantasy is the hardest genre to write. Do you agree? What do
I
you
think
think, Michelle?
that is an absolutely subjective thing. For some writers, I'm dead serious. So for some writers, like Brandon Sanderson, man, the worlds and the characters and the epicness spills out of him in a way that just blows my mind. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of writers who are like that with fantasy, but like the challenge of, for example, writing a rom-com, sticking to one POV and writing a nice tight story on that one character would be incredibly difficult. It's
Yes.
just I really think it depends on the person.
Yeah, it really I think there's some real truth to that. For me, so I've heard a lot of people say that fantasy is the hardest genre to write because you have all the world building and for the reasons that you just said. But for some people um that's not a challenge. But for me it would be if I had to create an entire universe. This is kind of one of the reasons why I don't even write historical. I stick to contemporary because I don't feel like that's something, at least at this point in my life, that's something that I really want to do. Although who
Yeah.
knows, maybe I will at some point. But I've also heard people say like romance is the hardest genre to write because it's all about the feelings and you have to do
Feelings.
such a deep dive into people's psyches and motivations and wounds in order to really make that work. And mystery can be hard. You got to plant all the it really depends on the genre. And then the
I
other
think
thing is like I've writing clients who are you know, who are making 7 figures a year writing romance or paranormal or whatever, and but they struggle to write nonfiction, which to me feels like the easiest thing in the universe. So I think your point about your perspective and sort of what your natural talents and gifts are and the things that you love, you know, really make it different. So there's your non-answer, Loretta. It would be the hardest genre for me to write. I'll give you that.
Something that I thought of when you said this that's funny is that with rom-coms, we have to think about also when you talk about like how hard it is to write in a genre, about the readers and what their expectations are. So with a rom-com, your readers expect the happy ending, and you need to deliver it to them.
You have to deliver.
But you have to find ways to surprise them anyway. And with mystery novels, the mystery readers, I know because I am one voraciously, we know all the tricks. So we know red herrings. We're like, oh no, you want me to suspect that person, so I'm not suspecting that person right now. And as a writer, you have to find a way to like kind of subvert that or get around that, so you actually pull off twists.
Right? Your entire fan base is trying to outsmart you.
Exactly.
Like, right? I think I know that there is definitely some truth to that. Definitely some truth to that. It's interesting what you said about the rom-coms, because the trend with rom-coms right now is actually a dual POV. And so in the past, it was almost always single POV with the female heroine being your POV character. But dual POV is more common now. And if that's not something that you're super comfortable with, like for me, I would write first person single POV all day, every day. But my readers want to know what the gentleman in the bed is thinking. And so I have to, you know, to do that as well. So it is kind of an interesting thing. What do you guys think for you would be the hardest genre to write? Michelle, what would be your absolute hardest genre to write?
I believe either like incredibly hard sci-fi, like very futuristic high tech, because I am not technologically minded. That would be my number one, closely followed by like historical, especially like historicals written pre 1900. Anytime I would research, I would just get lost in it. I don't, you know what I mean? I feel like I've watched enough documentaries and done enough research of like certain eras, especially in American history, that like I could handle like a 1920s, for example, like a Gilded Age.
Right.
And I've written.
I think that's about as far back as I'd go.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I see writers who write like things like ancient Egypt is the setting, and I'm like, oh my god, I would not even know where to begin. Like, just the daily life of a human back then. What was it? I don't know. It would take me years and years
to do all that research, right?
Yeah.
I know. Well, that's the thing about fantasy, is that you can make up all those little details, but if you're doing anything historical or anything really technical, it's really super challenging. All right, so Lainey said RV life. Wow, it's very cute. And she says Liz Alden, this is our friend Liz on the boat. She lives on a sailboat. Also, maybe it's a yacht. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding the definition of a yacht, but I think it's a yacht. I don't know. Now I'm going to have to check it up and see. It might just be a really fancy sailboat, but I think it might be a yacht. I think that, okay, I'm going to check, because I feel like this is information that we need to know. So Abby says, living on a yacht. Yes, please. Yes, please. Oh yeah, I forgot. Heather's also in Tampa. We can have like a little, right? We should have a little get together. Loretta, Heather, we'll just like have a little Tampa get together, little Tampa crew. BC says, I didn't realize you live in Seattle, Michelle. Cool. You're my neighbor, sorta. I'm in Portland.
Oh, Portland. Nice. I like that.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. All right. So Techno says they're not interested, but I continue to query. Was told I should rewrite my query, and pages I sent in probably will. All right. Who told you that? Like, let's make sure that you have some. Yeah, they use some good information there. I hate for you to waste work if that's not your issue. Ms. Swift says, for me, mystery is proving harder to write than fantasy. What's your challenge? Ms. Swift,
Mm.
what is it that's hard for you? For me, it would be the planting of the clues, because I have worked with mystery authors for so long. I don't know if you guys know this. I used to work for a mystery publisher. So I've read a ton of mystery. I do love the genre, but I also can like I'm I also spot things that I go, oh, like that, that kind of thing. And I think I that would be challenging for me to write, I think, mystery. I don't know what would be harder, mystery or fantasy for me.
I think a lot of people, if they're like averse to plotting, then mystery would probably be the biggest challenge because you kind of you can paint some mystery, but you're gonna have the biggest rewrite.
Yes,
You know?
that's really true. I'm shocked at how many best-selling, award-winning mystery authors that I know who are complete and total pantsers. I'm like,
Yeah,
how do you write a mystery with like by pantsing it? But I think they both of them do a lot of rewrites. So I think that,
yeah,
or I do
you
more
would
than that. But the two I'm thinking of right now, both big award winners, do major,
have.
major rewrites. I am with you, Daisy. So much research. Lysandra, I write romance. I think horror would be hard for me to write. So
Mhm.
this is funny. I used to always think that, and I was not a horror fan until I fell madly in love with the horror geek, and he sort of introduced. And one of the first movies that we ever saw together, which is one of his favorites, is Cemetery Man, which is sort of a love story.
Ah,
I know, right? Now I'm thinking about it, the horror geeks moves back in the day. Anyway, it was sort of a love story, and I would have thought that too. But there was a horror romance that I absolutely loved called Warm Bodies. Do you guys remember that? I think it had Nicholas Holt in it. He was like the whole world had been taken over by zombies, and there were these little pods where humans still lived, and a zombie falls in love with a human. Oh, zombie boy falls in love with a human girl and trying really hard to be good, and eventually their love sort of brings back the humanity of the zombies. I've just spoiled it. I'm sorry. It's a really charming little love story.
huh. Never heard of that.
Avi says, my short story is about 13-year-olds, 13 magic items, and the spooky magic shop is going to be marketed to adults who read kids' books. Is that a thing, or should I market towards kids and adults can read? I guess it depends on. I
Hey,
guess go. Go,
okay.
Michelle.
So adults read young adult and adults read middle grade, but it's very different. Adults who read young adult are reading it for themselves, and most adults who read middle grade, I shouldn't say most. I read middle grade, but I feel like the adults who are reading it at large are like teachers, parents, librarians, people who are going to be reading because they want to recommend books to kids or know what books for their
Right.
kids to read. So,
And you write books for kids, so
yeah, this is a tough one because I mean, I want to say you need to market it towards kids because they're your readers, but
right.
you do want to keep those adult kind of gatekeepers. And I don't mean gatekeepers in a bad way. Kids don't have their own money. Adults buy
Right.
their books. So like you do
Right.
have to and
And put the
honestly,
books into the libraries and things like that.
yeah. And I've also honestly felt for a long time that a lot of books, middle grade books that are like specifically being positioned out the gate to be like contenders for the Newbery, they are way more marketed towards librarians than kids, which I think is kind
Mhm.
of an issue. But it's how it is, so there's
It
that.
is. Well, I mean, that it makes sense in some ways because obviously they're targeting the decision makers. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely
And
some
it
truth
should
in that.
still be for kids.
Agree. Agree. It's funny too because I think I look at some of the, and I don't want to get into it. We'll go right into our next sprint after this. But I I think that a lot of books that have won the Newbery in the past would be too politicized right now to win like this year or next year. That I'm thinking about Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type was a Newbery winner, I believe. And what was that? I've been watching Lie to Me, and I just realized I just flipped off the entire audience with my scratch. Sorry. uh, but yeah, I think there's some. Oh, and what was it? and Tango Makes Three. That was that a Newbery winner too? I could be mistaken on that one. I'm not
I'm not
sure.
sure.
Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure on that one. Anyway, so yes, I my first impulse would be also to market more towards the people who are going to read the book. That said, right? Because you want like a push pull strategy. You
Yeah.
want to market to librarians and people who and teachers and people who are making those school library decisions and parents, obviously, but you also want to market towards your kids. I will tell you, I did not go to the bookstore every Tuesday to get, you guys remember when the 39 Clues books were like so
Oh
insanely
gosh.
popular?
Yes.
My son like knew every release date, and we would
Aw.
like make a plan after school to go to the Barnes and Noble to get the new 39 Clues book. That was a
Yeah.
genius strategy, by the way.
Yeah.
Good Lord. We could talk marketing about that series like all week.
I forgot
And
about that. Thank you for the
yeah,
reminder.
they did so many smart. They had like the clue, you get the playing card things in the book, and then but then there was like a whole interactive thing online to see like
Yeah.
which of the families you belong to.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was so based and all these historical figures that you identified. Like it was genius on about eight. And because they worked with a whole bunch of different authors, I think Rick Riordan wrote the first and other ones
Yeah.
in the series, but they had so many children's authors writing those books that you had it was rapid release when that was not a thing. You had a new one
Yeah.
coming out like every 2 months.
And you had all of these big authors promoting it to
all the
their
time. Every book in the series, you'd have these major. Yeah, it was really genius, and I would love to see somebody do that.
Yeah.
Right? It would be
Yep.
super cool.
Yep.
All right. BC straight up worst at horror, but I'd hate to write would be historical fiction. I love this. Loretta would fall asleep trying to write some sort of Little Woman type book. I totally get that. Totally get that. Yes, absolutely. Vixen's here. Vixen's here. Absolutely. Are we tea drinkers or coffee drinkers? Our gathering can be. I'm a tea drinker. I am not a coffee drinker. I could totally
Both.
do that. Yeah, I could totally do that. Yes. All right, you guys, before we go into any more comments, let's go ahead and do some writing sprints because we are a few minutes in and we have not done a big sprint yet. So let's go ahead and get our thing up here on the screen. All right. So we've got this. We're going to write some good words. We've been having a good chat, and now it's time to work. All right, everybody. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Let's cha-cha. I was just like totally in it. I did not I just that came so fast, so fast. How did you do on that last sprint?
Not bad. I got a decent chunk of scene done. I had to like get up and take care of some like wash my coffee cup out and do some other stuff too, so I didn't get the whole 20 minutes in, but I'm writing a very fun scene. Man, Lisa, I really wish this wasn't a ghostwriting project because I want to tell you the premise so bad.
I want to know the premise so bad.
It's just so cute. Like, I'll be very vague about it. The main character, her goal is to, very using only logic and ration and not her heart, find the perfect woman to marry. And I'm at this the kind of act 2 area where she just goes on a series of terrible dates.
3
And
dates and
like
a
just
disaster.
he has this like checklist of what she wants in a wife. And yeah, it turns out, and of course, like she's got the love interest too, is like none of those things, and it's gonna blah blah blah. You see where it's going, but like
Thank you.
the bad dates are so fun to write.
They are the best to write. They are the best to write. This is so one of my books, Single Minded, was a book that I was writing when actually, can I see? Oh, I can't. I was going to move my computer, but you can't. Anyway, Single Minded was the book that I was writing when the horror geek and I were first falling in love. And it's a story of a woman who has she marries her like childhood sweetheart, and it turns out he's gay. Didn't have the heart to tell her because they're
Oh,
besties, right? So they've been
right.
married for all this time. She finds out and she's like, I've never been on a date with a straight man. I'm 30. I've never been on a date with a straight man. And so her girlfriends all get together and they're like, oh, well, before you find the one, you have to date all these different types of men. And they have like the quarterback, the this, the that, like the fish. So she basically has to get all the drummer in the rock band. You have to get all these sort of experiences that we all have in college out of the way before you're going to meet the one, right? And so it was just writing one bad date after another, horrifically bad dates, mortifyingly bad dates, and it was the most fun, like the most fun. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think this sounds like so much fun. Love that. Absolutely love that. So let's check out the comments. You guys let us know how everybody did in the chat. Sisters writing a YA blah blah. Writing a YA thriller with multi timelines. Super excited to watch popular YA series from 2005 to get the voice of my teens from that era. One Tree Hill, The OC, etc.
Classic.
Yes, I'm here for that all day. Karen White writes romantic comedies set in the 90s. Love.
I wonder why we love that, Lisa.
I don't know. I can't imagine why I would love that. LaFay says Warm Bodies was way better than I thought it'd be. Me too. It was like one of those where I went to go see it sort of. Oh, look, there's Odie. I went to go see it like on a day where I was like, oh, I was struggling. I just wanted to go to the movies and there wasn't really anything that looked good. And I'm like, I'll go see this. And I loved it. I thought it was adorable. And it's funny because I also showed the movie to my mother, who generally likes almost everything I like. And she hated it. She thought it was terrible. She could not get over the zombie stuff. Love this. Avi says, I read somewhere that Warm Bodies is a zombified Romeo and Juliet. I can see, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, there is obviously a natural rivalry between groups of people where one group is trying to eat the other group. So yeah, I can totally see that. Your
typical romantic conflict.
Exactly, right? Sometimes it's hard to get your love interest to like your friends and family. Oh gosh, the thing about rom-coms is you often have that scene, not just rom-coms, romance in general, is that you frequently have that scene at the end of the book where the romantic interest is now being accepted into the characters' families, right? So their friend groups are accepting of the match, the families are accepting of the match. In some of them, it's, you know, kind of a Romeo and Juliet, you and me against the world. But that is a pretty key component. It's funny. I actually read something on Facebook this morning where a romance author had broken down the reasons why everyone is so obsessed with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift right now. That, like, stop being a hater. Here's why we're all so obsessed. And that was kind of one of the elements that they had mentioned, which is that we all find it so charming that Taylor Swift is hanging out with Travis's mom, and that he's hanging out with Taylor's dad at the concert. Like, how, you know, it's that we see, like, that's how people, I think, started to kind of think that this was real and not just like a showmance. So
Right.
anyway, yeah. Love that. So the question was, sorry, I was turned onto Critique Batch yesterday. Am I the only one who had never heard of it for critique
You're not.
partners?
I had not
I
heard of
have
that
never
either.
heard of it, but I'm going to look it up. It sounds kind of interesting. Yeah, I think for critique partners, well, so this is interesting. How do you find your critique partners, Michelle?
Well, I haven't found a new critique partner in a long time because I have my tried and trues, and
Right.
it was back when my first book was, well, no, actually before that I joined the Absolute Right forums. This was in like 20 oh god, I don't even know what
This was 100 years ago.
it was a century ago fully.
Yeah.
And I met some writers online. I was living overseas, and so we became critique partners. When I moved to New York, I decided I wanted in real life friends as well, and this is very out of character for me. I met some people at some book launch parties. I got some contacts, people that I liked, that I felt like, oh, these are good potential friends. I organized a picnic in Central Park.
What?
I invited like a dozen people, and of them, I kept in touch with all of them, but like maybe 4 of them became like super close friends, and we became critique partners for each other. And that's it.
Great.
I have not made a new friend since.
You're right. I totally get that. I know I do tend to go back to like my old people over and over again. But it's interesting. Yeah. And I think that happens. Like, once you and your critique part, it's like a romance in some way. Like it, or close friendship. But once you find those people or person, that you kind of tend to stick with each other for each other's books for a long. The funny thing is that my main critique partner is probably Lisa McLeod, who writes nonfiction exclusively, but she has a super human ability to really spot any false notes with emotions. She is like, yeah, she's better at it than almost anybody I think I've ever met. Yeah. And for me, that's like an incredibly valuable skill. And she is so smart and has these amazing ideas, but she also is a pantser and rambles a lot. And I am really good at like getting her to like, what are you trying to say here?
Yeah.
And so even though we write in completely different genres, we are really good critique partners for each other. But I love this idea. I'm going to check it out. I think it's kind of interesting. I have not heard about that before. And I know this is something that people struggle with, is finding critique partners. So I think that's such a cool idea. All right. Loretta says, I just saw a video by Alyssa Matisic that said historical is considered 50 years or older. Do you agree? I think somebody else had said somewhere in the chat, 20, here we go. Vintage is 20 years or 50 for historical doesn't seem unreasonable. I always think of historical as old, but I would... But just as I would judge someone who, that I would expect someone who actually writes romance to tell us exactly what it is, I don't write historical. So 50 years for historical, 20 for vintage seems right for me. But then I think about, okay, so going back to Karen White's novels about the 90s. So if you think about it, that's 30 years. That does not feel historical. It does feel kind of vintagey, though.
It doesn't, but then what do you call it? If it's not historical, it's not contemporary.
Right.
So we don't have a word for
I
that.
think vintage is probably that 20 to 49 year range. So that feels right. And then 50 years for historical. So that would be basically like, but that means like, isn't Daisy Jones in the six? Wasn't that set in it's set in the 70s, right?
I think so, yeah.
That would be historical. That would be historical. That doesn't quite feel historical. If it were
Right.
just me, again, layperson, because I do not write historical, I would say probably closer to like 100 years to feel to me. But again, I'm not, I don't, yeah. There you go. Loretta says, and that means 8 years. My childhood is historical fiction.
That's, I mean, girl, same.
Right?
I'm like,
Exactly.
wait,
Exactly.
how old am I? Crap.
That's great. Oh, this is cool. So you're not like, it's not like a dating, not like a matchmaking service for critique partners. You're able to sort of just critique other people's writing. That's interesting.
Oh.
Diane the Ninja is here. Okay. So, all right. Very nice. Techna says, I get lots of queries back, only ones that I should rewrite from a traditional publishing company. All right. That's good. RC has entered the building. There we go. Very nice. Very nice. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So BC said, try to open my revision current draft and won't open. I'm worried it's corrupted.
No.
You know what? It's going to be fine.
Is this
Who's our
Microsoft
tech
Word?
person? Who's
Because
our
Microsoft
tech
Word.
person who can do this? Robert would be the person to ask. Like, yeah. What are you writing on, BC?
Is it Word? I hate Word so much.
I know. I tell you, so for years I used the 2008 version of Word on Mac because the two subsequent versions they had done would crash, and I on multiple occasions was losing big hunks of work, even though I had it set to auto save like every, whatever minute or every page or whatever it was. And I just, after that, I was like, forget it. I never had problems with Word 2008. So I literally continued to use Word 2008 until like a year ago when I bought my new laptop, which has a different operating system or something where you can't use all that old stuff anymore. So I did not give Word 2008 up because all the ones that came after were so glitched, like glitchy and horrible. So I feel your pain, BC. We all do. We're all saying a little writer prayer for you right now that you're going to get this. So, yes. Okay. Tell us what platform it is, and then anybody who possibly has a solution will give you an idea for sure. No 72, good gracious, says 2003 Word. I feel ya right there. I feel ya. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and do our very next sprint, and then we're going to come back and do some extra questions. Can I do it? It's so funny. I was literally just about to say the crazy words. Wow, this sprint has gone really smoothly. I haven't messed anything up yet. What would cause me? Yeah. All right. If it happens from here, you'll know either Amy has entered the building and brought her gremlins with her, or I have, jinxed us all. All right, everybody. We're going to make our second writing sprint happen. Let's get some words done today. Here we go. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's sprint. Right. I got you. Okay, so how did everybody do on that last sprint? Let me get rid of our little
Good.
thing here. Fantastic. I have no. Hold on, let me check and see what I've got. Ooh, 422. That's not too bad.
Oh my gosh, I got 418. We're so close.
We are so close. Oh my God, I love that. That's awesome. Yay. All right. How did you guys do in the chat? Let us know. Let us know. Avi said, moved to New York, decided I want to have real life friends. Sounds like the start of a great movie. Right? Yeah. Yes. Called Stakes or Stakes EA. If they're trying to eat you. Okay,
Yeah.
so Diane is historical. I love that. Regina is toying with the idea of writing a novel set in the 60s. Have firsthand experience. Love, love, love that.
Do it.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so glad you have a poster of the cutting edge. I've been trying to figure out a non-awkward way of asking who you were so I could subscribe. Thank you. I'm Lisa Daly. Hi. Anyway, yeah, there's my book. Oh, you can't see can't see my name, but you guys know who I am. So anyway, yay. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? That was great. I apologize. I didn't see that. I will credit for the joke goes to Techno72. Yikes says 549. I thought I was struggling. You know what?
Nice.
Sometimes 549 is excellent and sometimes it feels like a struggle. It depends on the day. For sure. All right. It's funny because one of the questions that we'd had actually plays right into what we were talking about before the break, which is what would be the hardest kind of novel for you to write. So, what do you think? What's the easiest kind of novel to write for you?
For me?
Yeah. Well, especially for you because you write a lot of different types.
Contemporary middle grade. Because I've written so many at this point that and if it's contemporary, there's not as if it's like a setting that I don't feel like I don't have to research a lot, then yeah, I can fly through that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. I'm for sure contemporary romance. I would like to say rom-com, but I did have some struggles during the pandemic of writing the comedy part. And in fact, when I started with the cutting edge, because that's a series, I had initially decided it was just going to be straight contemporary romance and not a rom-com. But then once I took that pressure off myself to be funny, which normally being funny is not a problem for me, but for whatever reason, when I was writing those, like during the pandemic and after, I really struggled with that. We all know what the reason was. It was miserable. It's hard to be funny when it's miserable outside. And but then once I took that pressure off of the book not having to be funny, I think it actually turned out there's some pretty funny ones. Loretta says, I think romance is easiest. Well, since you're a romance writer, that makes sense. I also would say romance for sure. I imagine that we probably all write the type of book that we find either the most compelling or the most challenging. Is anybody like just a glutton for punishment and is writing something just to challenge themselves, like the most challenging type of writing? For me, that would be like some sort of, I was going to say historical sci-fi, but that's not really a thing, isn't it?
Historical sci-fi.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was thinking of the two most challenging things for me, and I smashed them together.
I think steampunk falls into that because you've got like usually a Victorian setting, but with different technologies. So that would be hard.
That would, I couldn't do that. Yeah, for sure. All right. Romance is easiest for me because people just make sense. Fantasy is also easy because I'm constantly making new words. Love that. Love that. Contemporary romance, I get compliments on my dialogue and jokes. Yay! Nice. Love that. I can totally jam on a historical sci-fi with historically accurate time travel with hard science. Love it. Not for me, but I can totally see you doing that. Epic fail on romance. Avi, I'm kind of surprised.
Me too.
I think my prose senses my cynicism. I would just make a character that's cynical.
I would love a cynical character in a rom-com. I think that would be fantastic, actually.
Right? And they can't help it. Eventually it just overtakes them. Yeah. Yes. I know somebody like that, actually. I know somebody like that. And so let me say that man fell hard. If they fight it and fight it and fight it, by the time they give in, it's just overpowering.
Nice.
Avi, I want to see that again, baby. All right. Loretta is writing soft fantasy for the challenge. Never even wrote a romance. Oh my gosh, you guys, we got like I was gonna say a crap ton of comments all came in all at once. Sisters, I've never written more than one timeline before, and I've also never written a thriller before, and now I'm writing both in the same book. Excited but also terrified. Love that. I think it's a good idea always to sort of stretch yourself with cutting edge. It's not my best book. I will say that right off the bat. Like, I love it, but it's not my best book. And the reason for that is it was my first book in a series, and it was so my first series and also my first dual POV. And right. And so I didn't feel as comfortable, but I do love it because I think anytime you sort of stretch yourself and try to, acquire some new skills and talents, it's going to be bumpier than if you're just doing things that you already know, but it's totally worth it. So 1,000 great books, writing an experimental novel. The narrative starts childlike and gets more complex as the character grows and matures. That's kind of interesting. What just plopped into my head was a book that did that really well. Do you guys remember, this is a million years ago, Flowers for Algernon?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I ever read it, but definitely remember it being like...
I don't even remember... I don't even remember the full plot. I do remember, I think Algernon was a mouse, and then there was another, the other character, and there was something where, I don't remember if they had, like, if there was a disease or something or some other challenge, but basically they had given this treatment to the mouse and the person, as I recall. I could be completely messing this up. And they got smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. And everyone's like, this is great. It's awesome. And then it started to decline. The mouse obviously went first. And so the person knew ahead of time that, their ultimate demise was coming. But it was written in sort of a similar way, where it starts in a more sort of childlike, and then as the IQ of the character gets more and more gets higher, that obviously the language is a lot more complex, and then you have this thing. It was a fascinating book, and I have not read it since I think I was a kid, but now I want to pick it up again because it was really very innovative at a time. Daisy says, I'd be terrible at writing romance since I just don't get into reading it. Is there an anti-romance category? I'm sure there must be. I'm sure there must be a whole subgenre of romance haters. I don't know what happens at the end of that. Like, obviously the couple does not get together, and the cynical hero is right all along. It's interesting though. I think about, like, there's something really satisfying for romance readers about the happily ever after. And I wonder what's the payoff, or what's the, what is the reader of an anti-romance get out of it? Maybe is that you're just fine how you are and you don't need anybody else to complete you, or that you, right? Or, families of choice, or there are all sorts of great things. Yeah, you could totally do that. Ooh, good question. Does anyone have any tips for writing faster? I feel like I'm getting slower the more I write. A good sprint for me is about 250 words, but I feel in the past 300 wasn't a problem. Do you want to take this first? Or you want me to?
Yes. One of the most helpful write faster tips I ever got was in that book, 2K to 10K. And her tip was do like a free write of your scene first, where you're not worried about the voice or dialogue or prose. Just like fully describe the scene, like the mechanics of the scene, and then go back and rewrite it for prose. And I know that sounds like it would take a lot longer because you're writing it twice, but you're not, you end up, your fingers just move so much faster, because that first time you've taken off the layer of voice and style, and the second time you don't have to think about the mechanics, you're just thinking about voice and style. That still gets me my fastest writing sessions. doing it that way.
That's interesting. Well, one of the other things that she said to do is to track your writing and see
Yes.
where it is that, like, track your writing in the sense that you're writing down where you are, what time of day it is. I actually did a video on this a while back about knocking out 3,000 words a day. But I also use this to get all the way up to 5,000 words a day, which I'm doing pretty consistently. So one of the things is you track your writing, and I tracked it for like a couple of weeks, and you're writing down where you are, if you're listening to music, what, like anything else that's going on that day. Did you wake up with a headache, or are you stressed out about something, or it's just one of those days where you feel like you're on fire? And you just sort of keep all those notes, and you do it consistently. And what will happen is that you will start to see, after a couple of weeks, you start to see patterns. And I used to write in my office every day, and then if I made my word count all week, I would go write at the beach on Friday. But what I realized after tracking my writing was that I wrote twice as fast at the beach as I did in my office. And so I started swapping that, where I would literally go to the beach every single day to write. And just that doubled my word count, no problem. But if you're doing more of what works and less of what's not, like you might like, oh, well, the only time I have to write is after I come back from work or after my kids are in bed. But if that's not the best time of day, it might behoove you to try and figure out, like, how can I write better in the morning, or move something else around that requires less brain activity. And then also I have this, I don't know if you've ever done binaural beats, but I have right. So there's also a video on my channel that is, that it's binaural beats. And basically and you have to use headphones, but weirdly enough, a rapid resolution trauma therapist actually turned me on to this. But you write with the binaural beats, and that there are different ones. Some are like some frequencies are for relaxation, some are for better sleep, some are for productivity, some are for creativity. But if you do productivity and creativity, it's shocking how that little thing that you barely notice just makes a big impact with
and if anybody's wondering, you can go to like YouTube or Spotify and just type in binaural
beats creativity, right? Or like I said, I have one just for writing fast on this channel. I'll see if I can track it down and drop it in the chat.
Oh, cool. I have one more. Actually, I forgot.
Oh, yeah, good.
So I recently put just a free app with a timer up at the top of my, on my desktop, and I'll set it for like an hour or 2 hours, and it just counts down. And if you just do that while you're writing, it's like just having that countdown, I feel like it urges me on, like, oh wait, how many more words can I get in before I hit half an hour, blah blah blah. That's just a little mental trick. I think timers can really help.
I think timers are hugely helpful. And speaking of which, we should try and crowbar in one more sprint before we go today. I know we'll have to do it really quick. But yeah, I think there's definitely something to that for sure. And I think that's why the Pomodoro technique, which is like the 20-minute sprint timer, why that is so impactful. Love that. All right, let's do what can you do it? You always have can you stay 5 extra minutes?
I could do 5 extra minutes, yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll just do this right now. Okay, here we go, everybody. This is our last sprint. We are going to make this one count. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Sprint. Oh, I just cut it off right at the last second. Sorry about that, everybody. Here, I'll do it. Do. Okay, so congratulations. We did some awesome writing sprints today. I do not know what my grand total was, but I feel super productive today. So I'm super excited about that. How'd you do with your sprints, Michelle?
Really good. That was great. Still having a lot of fun with this terrible date scene.
Well, I love that. That is totally awesome. I'm going to pop everybody's comments up on because we went a few minutes late and we've all got to get going today. So, Michelle, will you go ahead and do your outro? Tell everybody a little about you and before we go.
Yes, Michelle Schusterman. I'm a young adult and middle grade author. My channel is traditional publishing, chat, writing vlogs, and writing workshops. Thanks.
Very nice. Thank you so much for being here today. I also dropped the binaural beats video in the chat, and I'll also put it in the description. This one that I dropped in there is a super sprint. So the ideal sprint time for productivity is 52 minutes of work followed by 17 minutes of rest. And so this binaural beats not only gives you the binaural beats for productivity, but also follows that thing. So they're super sprints. Just what you need to power you through NaNoWRIMO. All right, everybody. I am Lisa Daly, and this is my channel. If you want to write a book you're super proud of and get it published, this is an awesome place to start. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Happy NaNoWRIMO. We are not going to be here next Wednesday because of the American Thanksgiving holiday. And so we are going to be taking the week off in order to be with our families and friends. So I hope you guys have an awesome week and that you keep on writing. And we are so, so happy that you were able to hang out with us today because this was really an awesome stream. You guys are great. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye. Bye. There's a lot of waving. We're still live.